Despite the prohibition to meet in large groups because of COVID-19, the streets of America are on fire. Anti-racism demonstrations are erupting there and here in Canada and across the world. The name of George Floyd is becoming synonymous with so many things that are wrong in human society, particularly anti-Black racism, but also Islamophobia, sexism, homophobia, and prejudice of all stripes. Deep-seated prejudice that robs children of equal opportunities to an education, a good job, and the enjoyment of life itself. But here in Quebec, we don't have a problem, do we? Many of us would agree with our Premier that racism may rear its ugly head from time to time, but it's not systemic and nowhere near the problem that it is in America. Let's see if we agree. Hi there, my name is Ann Hogle. Welcome to this channel of weekly reflections about what it means to be spiritual beings having a physical experience, wherein I usually relate a Bible reading to what's happening in the world today. So let us begin. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, Jesus says, "Do not judge, so that you will not be judged. Why do you look at the splinter that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that's in your own eye?" You hypocrite! First, take the log out of your own eye, then you can see clearly how to remove the splinter from your brother's eye. Across Canada today, visible minorities are telling us to stop looking at the splinter in the eyes of our American neighbors and instead pay attention to the log in our own. At first I resisted. Like our Premier, I thought things were pretty good, pretty calm here in Quebec, surely not as horrific as the state of affairs south of the border. And then I started researching. I listened to our Canadian Minister of Immigration, Ahmed Hussein, a Somali Canadian who, to this day, gets followed around by security agents when he enters a store. I remembered the racial and religious slurs that were hurled at the NDP leader and member of the Sikh community, Jagmeet Singh, during the last federal elections. I listened to the story of Jean-Alphen Tanisma, a highly qualified Quebec-educated urban planner from Haiti who engaged in a 10-year struggle because he was passed over for promotion. His case went to the Supreme Court, where the city of Montreal was found guilty of systemic discrimination. I watched with utter disbelief as leaders of our current Quebec government insisted that the banning of the wearing of symbols of religious affiliation was not discriminatory. And Muslim lawyers, teachers, and doctors packed up and prepared to leave the province. I remembered the stories of the Indigenous women molested by police officers in northern Quebec. I remembered the bombing of the mosque in Quebec City and the alt-right radio stations that promoted Islamophobia. And every year, as a woman, I am reminded of the massacre of female student engineers at the École Polytechnique of Montreal. When you add up all these individual incidents, we can no longer say that we are devoid of systemic black racism, Islamophobia, sexism, homophobia, and the prejudice of all varieties. Indeed, the sad truth is that each of us must daily strive to overcome our inherent reluctance to embrace the stranger, the one who looks different or thinks different or speaks differently than we do. Let's face it, inside each of us is a primitive reptilian brain that holds fear and suspicion of anyone we don't know. Here in the rural area where I live, I still sometimes meet people whose first questions are quite personal. Where is your family from? Where did you raise your children? Which towns have you lived in? And what are the names of all your relatives? And this conversation will go on until we have reached the proverbial 7th degree of separation and found some person, friend or family that we have in common. Then there's a sigh of relief because now we know each other. So if our physical, biological self has this instinctual gut reaction of fear of the stranger, how does our intellectual and our spiritual self react? Here things start to get a little more complicated. Our culture, our collective experiences, our personal history of either abuse or privilege, and our spiritual practices are all playing a part in influencing our behavior. For example, as a follower of Jesus, I am continually challenged to be kind to those I disagree with. Jesus called it loving your enemies. And I translate that as at least having compassion for those I have trouble getting along with. I am challenged to be generous towards strangers and to give them the benefit of the doubt. I feel called to become more curious before I cast judgment. When searching for words to describe the nature of our Creator, some have described God as love itself, that care and affection within which the whole world kind of thrives. In the Bible, the followers of Jesus tell us that they experienced this love through the person of Jesus of Nazareth, and that they continued to experience this love through the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit that came to them after Jesus died. Thus, we come to this complicated notion in the Christian faith that our Creator has three aspects or characteristics. Firstly, is the originating force that creates all of life. And then secondly, as a spiritual, ethereal quality that nudges and directs us in mysterious ways. And then thirdly, via another human being. The followers of Jesus came to realize that they experienced God's very self through Jesus, the man. In today's passage, Jesus' parting words to the disciples in the Gospel of Matthew are, and I will paraphrase here, "Go, make disciples of all the nations, teach them my ways. Remember, I will be with you always." Jesus commissions the disciples to teach and heal and live as he has, so that in this way all the nations may experience the love of God. When we look out over the social landscape today, we cannot but testify that indeed our world is in dire need of more compassion and more kindness. But this project of renewal is not for the weak-hearted. We are also in need of more courage to stand up to the forces that create violence and prejudice and outright evil. As these strong forces swirl around us today in ever-increasing cycles of brutality, each of us are being called to take up the torch, to speak up for the underdog and the forces of goodwill, so that love prevails and evil is defeated, so that peace comes to the land and our fears are laid to rest, so that the winds of change bring new life and renewed hope, and all that is broken in this world is healed. So say we all.
Thank you for listening to today's message. If you are interested in supporting this ministry or in becoming a part of any of the acts of service of our church is involved in, or in attending one of our Zoom church services, you can contact us via the website which is listed below this video. We are currently focusing on helping our seniors navigate the technology so that they can maintain contact with their loved ones, as well as maintaining an outdoor self-serve food bank. So until we meet again, blessings on the journey.